Today I would like to show you how to make this wooden looking crocheted bowl. Here's what you'll need to make this bowl. A 4mm sized crochet hook, a tapestry needle, a stitch marker. My favorite are these split stitch markers from Coco Knits, Malabrigo worsted yarn in dark earth and praline, and I'm holding those two together. So to get started, you will make a slip knot, and then chain 3. And then you will slip stitch to the first chain to make a ring. And then chain 1, and next single crochet 6 into this ring. And the next step is to keep going around. And now we're on the second round, and we're going to single crochet 2 into each stitch around. And when you're done and back around to the other side, you'll have 12 stitches total in this round. And I actually don't start using the stitch marker until the next round because it just kind of gets in the way when the piece is so small, and I find it pretty easy to just either count in my head to 12 or count the stitches when I get around to the other side. So this round is where we start using the stitch marker. So this first stitch in the round is going to be 1 stitch. So make 1 single crochet into that first stitch, and in the next stitch single crochet 2. And then you're going to place the stitch marker into the first stitch of that one that you just put 2 single crochets into, and that acts as your first stitch in the round. And next single crochet 1, and then in the next stitch single crochet 2. And then you'll just continue that around. I kept this in real time so that you can see better what I'm doing. And you'll even notice that I'm struggling a bit with this yarn and the hook. And that's purposeful. I mean, not that I'm struggling, but that I want the stitches to be really tight so that the bowl has plenty of structure. So this hook is much smaller than you'd normally use for this weight of yarn with these two held together. Now's a good time to pull taut the yarn end in the center to close up the hole. And now you will remove the stitch marker and get started on the next round. And you'll single crochet 1 into that first stitch, and then you can see where my increase, where I had the 2 stitches there, I want to put 2 stitches into that one. So single crocheting 2, and then treating that first stitch of that increase stitch as my first stitch in the round. So I put the stitch marker there, and then single crochet 1 into the next 2 stitches. It's pretty easy to tell, at least for me, and I think that for others it will be too, where I put 2 stitches into the one. You can kind of see it makes a V shape, and you can see that there are 2 stitches in that one. So you're going to be putting an increase, so 2 stitches on top of where the previous round had an increase. So in this round, that means single crochet 2 into the first stitch in the round, where we put our stitch marker, and then single crochet 1 into the next stitch, and then continuing that as a pattern around until you get back to the other side. And so that's how this bowl is created. It's a very simple increase pattern. You're just doing increases over the top of the previous round's increase, so single crocheting 2 into those. So then the next round, which I sped up for you because it gets a little tedious watching me crochet, it is the single crochet 2 and then single crochet 1 into the next 3, and then you continue that around. And then in the next round after that, single crochet 2 into the first stitch and then single crochet 1 into the next 4. And you just continue that around until you have 6 stitches between each increase stitch. So that would mean single crochet 2 and then single crochet 1 into the next 6, and that's basically the size that we are making our bowl. Once I've finished that, I take a break and stretch my hands. I actually do this a few times in this process because it really is pretty hard on my hands making that yarn and the hook go through, making the stitches. So it's a really good idea to take breaks and stretch your hands. Now I'm starting on the rounds that are going to make the walls of the bowl. So I make 1 single crochet and then I single crochet again, and that will act as that first stitch. I hope that makes sense. I'm doing the same thing as all the previous rounds, except I'm not increasing in that stitch that I'm treating like the first stitch. I just make 1 stitch there. So then I just continue around and single crochet 1 into each stitch around, and I repeat that for 6 rounds. And I sped it up here again because, well, it's a lot of just crocheting. And I actually recorded quite a bit more than that, but my camera turned off and I didn't realize it had done that. So I made a little disc to show you how I finish off the bowl, and I'm going to show you how I do an invisible join. So I'm using my tapestry needle with my yarn end. Putting it into that stitch that's 1 previous. You can see there's a stitch in between the one that I put it into, and then going into the center of my last stitch toward the back. Then I pull that through, and it makes it look like there's a stitch right over that other stitch, so it makes it basically invisible. And then I just proceeded to weave in my ends just slightly, because I'm actually going to do one more step, which is needle felting. So I just weave in the ends just a little bit. And then cut off my end, leaving 1 inch. And then I did the same with the center piece. I wove in that end just a little bit to help it lie more flat. And then cut that off, leaving 1 inch. And then for this next step, I'm using a barbed felting needle and a block of foam. So what I did was I bunched up the yarn ends and then am using my fingernail sort of as a guide. It's really important that you're careful as you do this. That needle is so sharp, and it's a really strange thing. I've poked myself many times needle felting over the years, because needle felting is somewhat meditative. You are doing such a repetitive motion over and over, and you can kind of go into like a meditative state. And when you stab yourself on accident with that needle, the pain is so visceral because it's so unexpected. Anyway, be very careful not to do that. It will shock your system. So I use my fingernail and am very deliberate with where I stab into my piece. And it's also important to note that this yarn is 100% wool and it's non-superwash. That's what you need to make something felt, is wool. Maybe other animal fibers will do it as well, but I know that 100% wool will felt, and it needs to not be superwashed. It needs to be able to really bunch up on itself. So I do this just to finish off the piece. It makes sure that my ends are really secure, and you can even use it to shape a three-dimensional object a little bit. And if there's too much fuzz on the other side, I use these little snips to trim that up a bit. And then I'm just showing here how I finished off the bowl. And the bowl's basically done now, but it's not quite shaped how I'd like it. So the very last step is to steam block the bowl. And I'm just using my little steam iron. I found a bowl in my kitchen that was basically the same size as this bowl to act as a form. If you don't have that, you can use maybe a bunched up towels, just something under it to give it the shape that you want. And then I'm steaming, keeping my hand out of the way of the steam so that I don't burn myself, and just very generously steaming the bottom and the sides of the bowl. And what this does is help the fibers bloom and just kind of fit together better, and it helps me to shape the bowl. So I take it off the form and then steam the inside of the bowl, just the inside of the walls, because I don't want to smash it down. And then I put it back onto my glass bowl and steamed it one more time. And then I set that aside to let it cool down and dry. And so that's it. This is a bowl. It's perfect for the crocheted salads that I make. So I made a cute little video here showing putting the salads in it. So this is actually another pattern that I have created, and it's in my shop, and I can leave a link down below. It's made with the same Malabrigo yarn. I've been making these salads for years. I just showed you how to make the middle-sized bowl of the 3 stacking bowls you see here. And I'm showing you these because I actually have a pattern that's free. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope that this was helpful, and please let me know below in the comments if you have any questions about any of the techniques that I used here, or any questions about the pattern itself.